started real quick. Just want to, again, thank our honored guests here in front of us today. Certainly, Platte County High School, we are in the presence of greatness right now. I want to also share with you that today's ceremony is going to have some formal pieces to it. We know what our expectations are. But also, we'll try to coach you through that. So students are really need to pay attention. But I think you're going to learn and you're going to see some neat things today. At this time, I need everyone to stand and please remain silent for the posting of the colors.
Try to zoom out as much as you can. That's good.
I'm Brian Myers, I'm a senior here at Platte County. Please remain standing and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, please be seated. Thank you. Thank you. I want to welcome students, staff, parents, district administration, school board members, and all our distinguished military guests with me on the stage here and also in front of us today. My name is Dr. Chad Sayer. I'm the proud principal of Platte County High School, and it's with great honor and tremendous humility that we, the Pirate Nation, again welcome you into our home. This entire event is about you, all of you here today. Our efforts cannot begin to demonstrate how much you mean to our school, our community, our country, and many of the people here in the room today. We honor you. Here at Platte County High School, we live by 7 core values: integrity, innovation, collaboration, results-driven, student focus, and visionary leadership. While these are guiding lights that we use to support all our efforts here at the high school, each military person here today, and you in the audience, have some of your own. Let me share some of these values that have served these men and women today in times of joy and have guided them in times of combat. The Marines and Navy men and women believe in honor, courage, and commitment. By the way, those of you in the Marine Corps, happy 240th belated birthday from Platte County High School. Airmen and women, their values are to operate with integrity, service before self, and excellence in all you do. Army personnel are guided by loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And lastly, American Coast Guard rely on honor, respect, and devotion to duty as its core values. These core values all create a common bond between each of us. They give us guidance in a valley of fog and confusion. These values you have shown for us here today are for all. They are for every man and woman, teacher, student, military, civilian, young, and those of you that are young at heart. All of our collective core values create a community which each of us is stronger when we go beyond the individual and serve for the greater good of all. I believe the core values of our armed services here today paints a mosaic for which of us should live and strive for each day. Loyalty, personal courage, honor, excellence, commitment, service to self. Each of you here today in front of us have shown us the power of these simple words. Your dedication and willingness to sacrifice goes beyond any token of appreciation that we can demonstrate here today. We are all here to humbly recognize the fact that you have all been and will continue to be the guiding light in a world that's often shrouded in darkness. On behalf of Platte County High School, we thank you for your service and for your sacrifice. At this time, I would ask that all service members and veterans who are here today stand and be recognized. We are forever grateful for your service. Please stand with me. We recognize that the celebration does not compensate your service, but I assure you, it's from our students' hearts. And it's our own small way to help remember, honor, and show gratitude for all of you that have served our country and our community. Please now enjoy a performance by the Platte County High School Band entitled Armed Forces Salute. We ask that that veterans stand and be recognized when your specific branch of service is played. Thank you, students. Thank you, Dr. Jones. It's nothing like hearing that going through the hallways every morning for about 3 weeks, first hour. That gets you pumped up for the day, not going to lie. Well, first I want to introduce our first guest speaker today. His name is Army Reserve Staff Sergeant Jason Brown. He earned a bachelor's degree in government from the Northwest Missouri State University in 1993. He received a master's degree in public administration from Drake University in 1994. He was elected and served as our state representative in the Missouri legislature from 2003 through 2010. Then he was an elected presiding commissioner of Platte County from 2011 to 2014. He currently lives in Platte City with his wife, Rochelle, and their 3 children, Blaine, a junior, Caleb, an 8th grader, and Thomas, who is in 2nd grade. Jason first joined the Army in 1989. He is a qualified airborne infantryman, civil affairs specialist, military intelligence analyst, and a level 2 anti-terrorism protection force instructor. He has been deployed overseas twice, and most recently he was received his Combat Action Badge, Bronze Star, and a Purple Heart Award during his tour in Iraq, where he was a non-commissioned officer in charge of the scene. Please give a warm welcome to Staff Sergeant Jason Brown.
Now that's my height right there. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I appreciate very much the opportunity to be here today. Thank you for the invitation, sir. I'd like to welcome all the brothers and sisters from the other services that are here today, also all the other veterans in the room, even including the Marines that are here. It's good to see all of you. This afternoon, I'm going to tell you a quick story about a veteran. He's a middle-aged man, married, 3 kids, college educated, has been in the Army for a number of years. He was deployed to Iraq in 2006. He spent 14 months serving his nation. But it was his actions in early October of 2006 that I'm going to explain in more detail today. That fateful day started out like most. It was hot, it was dirty, and tiring. During the mission prep, prior to the convoy leaving the FOB, he was told he couldn't go on the mission. He had other duties to complete. He lacked the outside-the-wire experience that was necessary to be part of that mission and that convoy. However, after much discussion, he was finally allowed the last seat in the last Humvee on that convoy. Later that afternoon, when the first shot and explosion rocked the vehicle that I was in and knocked me down to my knees, I got back up, manned the gun in the turret, and secured the rear sector fire I was responsible for. Our contact was called up, and we realized immediately one of our dismounted soldiers had been hit and was lying on the street. As another soldier picked him up and threw him in the rear of the Humvee, we popped smoke. We filled that alleyway with cover smoke so we could get everybody into their Humvees so we could exfil. In that process, I started to notice that my left side hurt. Our Humvee was repositioned in convoy and we began to move. On our internal comm system, I brought that to my driver's attention. The soldier below me at my feet, that was applying first aid to one of my dismounted soldiers, immediately turned and looked up at me, ripped open my tactical vest, flipped out his knife, cut my t-shirt up, shoved his hand up under my left side. When he brought his hand back down, it was covered in my blood. I looked at him, and he, without hesitation, turned, grabbed a first aid package, took the gauze out, wrapped it around his finger, and shoved his finger in the hole in the left side of my chest. Now that occurred in split seconds. Obviously I lived. I'm standing here today. Now this story is not about me. This story is about that veteran, that individual soldier that was in a faraway place from his wife, his 3 daughters, who was gone for 14 months. That individual was my company commander. And I was the staff sergeant that morning that continued to tell him that I didn't want him in my vehicle. I was that staff sergeant that said he lacked the tactical experience to be outside the wire on my team. And I didn't want him to be a greater liability for my men on that mission. And I fought all morning long. But thankfully, the Army has a rank structure. And thankfully for my dismounted and I, that majors still outrank staff sergeants. He ended up in my vehicle. And that's how I get to stand here today. Now, what is not unique about that veteran, or myself, or any of these veterans that are here, is that all of us have served. All of us may have a different experience, but all of us have served. We have all spent that time away from our families. And our families have spent that time away from us. Because he was willing to spend that time, my dismount and I got to come home so that we could spend time with our wife and our children. Each year on the anniversary of that day, he and I speak on the phone. He's now done very well and made lieutenant colonel, and he and I are still close to this day. We spoke just last month. His kids are getting older just like mine are. He's getting older just like I am. But we remember that, and we'll never forget that day. You see, each veteran here in front of you has a story. And we are all bound by that service, by that time. Someplace, doing something that not everybody wanted to do or not everybody could do. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. When we return home, most of us, the majority of us in this day and age, receive a hero's welcome. Parades, bands, flags. But it wasn't that long ago. My father's generation from Vietnam didn't receive that. In fact, just the opposite was true. They returned home to jeers and name-calling. I cannot even fathom that. But they still came back home, and they still did their job, and they raised their kids, and they became part of society again. As we that return now are doing the same. All veterans, past and present, have helped shape this nation. The challenges and the opportunities that exist now are because of those that have gone before us and the sacrifices that they have made. So to the students that are sitting here today, what advantages will you take from the sacrifice of others? Will you be part of something larger? Will you give back? Will you participate? Will you hold one another accountable for your actions? You've been labeled a lot of things by the media, by society at large. But it's your choices that are your consequences. And only you in the end will be responsible for those actions. I will never apologize for being American, and neither should any of you. But with being American, there are certain responsibilities that do come. We can be politically diverse, we can be ethnically different, heck, we can even generally be disagreeable about things. But it's best said in our Pledge of Allegiance, we are one nation under God. So I challenge each of you to build upon what has been given to you, and that is a free nation. Don't squander what so many have sacrificed for. Don't buy into doing just what feels good right now. Realize that life is filled with opportunities and challenges, and that social media, in all forms, is just perception. If you allow it, it will label you. Don't. All of you can choose to do what is right, or you can choose to do nothing. It is your choice. There's a quote by Teddy Roosevelt that I have believed in and tried to live by for the longest of times. It is not the critic who counts, he who points out how a strong man stumbles, or the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. He who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error, and no error without shortcomings. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends themselves in a worthy cause. He who is at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold, timid, poor souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Your parents, your teachers, and these veterans believe in each one of you. In the end, it's your nation too. And now it's your turn. The challenge is, what will you do? Thank you again for allowing me to be here today. May God continue to bless each of us, our families, and this great nation. Thank you all.
Staff Sergeant Brown. Again, I want to remind everybody, we are in the presence of greatness. At this time, I would like to present the Platte County High School Wind Ensemble performance for the national anthem. Please stand, and I encourage all of us to reflect upon our personal sacrifice of our veterans. Again, I want to make sure I understand this. While we've heard this many, many times at many of our sporting events, today I want you to think about something different.
Why do you do that?
I want you to listen to the message you just heard. I want you to reflect upon the personal sacrifice that these men and women have made so that we can be in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you, Wind Ensemble. At this time, I would like to invite 10th grade students Mark Calhoun, and then afterwards, Helena Dabney to the podium to share their own and other students' personal glimpses of the challenges and joys on being part of the military family.
Thank you to our veterans joining us today. Your sacrifice is one that cannot be measured, and we are all grateful for what you have given to defend our freedom. At this time, I would like to honor a group of people who are often overlooked during this special day for veterans, the family. I am the proud son of a distinguished serviceman, Lieutenant Colonel retired Mark Calhoun. He still serves even after retirement, working as professor at the Army School of Advanced Military Studies. A lot of people comment on the maturity of kids like me. We are typically responsible and respectful, but we are not without our own unique set of struggles. From frequent moves to parent deployment, to helping hold our families together in times of need, we too are on the front lines. Please join me in listening to a few of those voices, the children of our servicemen and women. Student 1, being a military kid isn't easy. We have to learn early on that life really isn't up to us and that we can't control where we move next or when our parents leave. Friendships are formed and then it's time to say goodbye. While it is never easy, I learned early on to always cherish the moments. I remember all of my friends since I was 5. I haven't seen any of them since I moved, and it is unlikely I ever will, but what counts is the time that we had together. It's our last breakfast as a family for a very long time. Dad is leaving today. I'm scared and confused, not knowing what to say or how to act. Every time is different, and it's never easy. In the car, before he leaves on his plane for deployment, he plays our favorite song. He looks me in the eyes and hugs me. The tears begin to fall as if they will never cease. Even though I know I'm supposed to be strong, it never gets easier. My dad's deployment was difficult. Even though he was the one technically deployed, I felt like my mom was deployed too. She was a mess and cried every day. I knew that I had to be tough for my family, so I tried to stay strong and be positive. I tried to hold everyone together, even though I was struggling myself. The strain in our family was immense. When Dad returned, we molded back together as a family, but I will never forget the painful place my family resided in during my dad's deployment. Thank you for giving me a moment to share the voice of the military kid. These students sit among you now. Please be mindful that they struggle right alongside their families during times of transition and deployment. Thank you again to the veterans here today. We honor you and thank you for your service and sacrifice. I would now like to introduce a fellow student, Helena Dabney, who will be reading her original poem.
The first time I saw intimacy was when I was 4. I was watching TV in the living room eating gummy snacks. I looked behind me to see something I would never see again. My mother and father slow dancing in the kitchen. Their foreheads touching, eyes closed, dancing to a song I couldn't hear. At the time, it meant nothing to me, so I turned back and got lost in the world of colorful cartoons. The first time I saw a rage so furious was just a couple days later. The 3 of us were sitting down for dinner. They got into an argument about another deployment for my father. I remember a bowl thrown against the wall, shattering as abruptly as the marriage. I remember the violence and hatred. I remember the tears. The memory of my father and mother slow dancing, the screams and curse words rang in my ears, now the music I could not hear. The first time I realized not all couples were meant to be was on Valentine's Day, the day my mother and father got divorced. Ever since, Valentine's Day has not been a day of love, but a realization. I don't remember anything about the divorce, just that my father left Reno on deployment and never came back, and my mother stayed to wallow in the memories. The first time I realized I hated my dad was when I was 11. My mother developed a tumor the size of a golf ball, and she needed help paying for treatment. In tears, my mom passed her cell phone to me, asking me to vouch for help for my father. I took the phone, my fingertips frozen. Move in with me. Your mom can't even take care of you. She doesn't have enough money. I do. I pay child support every month for what? To see you once a year? Come live with me. She puts me first. I hung up. The first time I forgave my dad came quickly after, as did the payments for treatment from him. He apologized, he cried, for all the goodbyes that weren't as good as other pain relievers he used, for all the father-daughter dances that were never more than just heartfelt movie scenes, for all the years he put his country before his family. The first time my eyes grew bigger was when my dad went to the Iraq War. The pain in my chest, instilled by fear, thought that my father could die, that the only way I would ever see him again was through the terrible lidless eye of memory, that the man I hated so much put his entire life on the line to protect his country, our country, to protect his family and all the families in it. The last time I set out to forgive my father, all I could find were the empty years without a dad. My pride, an anchor to a void that was created by his pride. An unwavering love for families he never met. The blade of suffering now sheathed in respect for a father who never belonged to me, but to his country. What remains is a bittersweet love for my unforgiven hero.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Mark. Again, we are in the presence of greatness. Oftentimes we celebrate, again, the veterans that are here today, but also it's important for we as a student body in Platte County High School to understand that there's many of these students in our ranks that sometimes we don't know who they are. I look at these tremendous men and women in front of me, and I saw a commercial recently that talked about when they come home from deployment is when they camouflage the best, because they're in the stores, they're at the bank, they're at church, and you'll never know that they're a vet, because some of these are the most humble people I've ever met. I think these two students' passages kind of show us the complicated process, that at this stage, it might be different at an elementary age, but at the high school, it's very complex. And I want to honor these men and women in front of us because when they choose to put their country and their service on the line, there is a sacrifice. And it might not be a wounding, it might not be physical, typically it's not. But that's what we're here to celebrate. That's when we talk about being in the presence of greatness. Please remember that as we proceed to the next phase. I want to make sure I introduce our next guest, Lieutenant Colonel Candy Smith. She is a military intelligence officer currently stationed in the United States Strategic Command at Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska, as the Chief of Operations for the Joint Cyber Center. Lieutenant Colonel Smith has served in the Army for over 19 years. She is a combat veteran participating in the initial invasion of Iraq for Operation Iraq Freedom and deploying to Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom. Lieutenant Colonel Smith has also participated in Army exercises in Thailand, Korea, Australia, and Kuwait. She has a bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, 2 master's degrees, and is working on her PhD from Kansas State University. She is also a graduate of the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College, School of Advanced Military Studies, and numerous other Army courses to include airborne assault. Lieutenant Colonel Smith lives in Platte City with her husband, Lieutenant Colonel retired Steve Smith, and 3 sons, Sam, an 8th grader, Dylan, a 3rd grader, and Finn, a 2nd grader. Please welcome to the podium, Lieutenant Colonel Candy Smith.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Searcy, board members, and students of Platte County High School for allowing me the opportunity to return again and say a few words and present the POW MIA Remembrance Ceremony. In a few minutes, when I take you through the Remembrance Ceremony, I want you to think about my following words. Most veterans won't tell you about the hardships of war or service. They'll tell you about the friendships and the shared sacrifices. The less than desirable meals, the unbelievably hot days and frigid nights, the things they missed about home, the experiences they had with the local population, both good and bad, and the bizarre conversations you have in the middle of the night, like why is a camel spider called a camel spider when it looks like neither? Why do all Navy personnel say "are" when you mention pirates? Why do Marines think they're so tough? And how is it possible for men to come up with a movie quote for every situation? These are the things that bind veterans together: friendship and shared sacrifices. And in our hearts reside those who make a far greater sacrifice than we can possibly share. Day to day, we quietly and silently remember those who are captured or missing. But today I share aloud our remembrance and let each of them know that while they did not return, they are not forgotten.
At this time, we are going to do the remembrance ceremony for those who are not with us today, the POW and the MIA. We are so gracious that Lieutenant Colonel Smith, which led the ceremony last year, is here to do it again. Please pay attention. To close the ceremony, Senior Kevin Weiner and Junior Gavin Schmidt will play taps to honor our fallen soldiers. Also to honor our servicemen and women that are not here with us today, Freshman Ryan Lett will be playing Amazing Grace. Both performances are often played at military remembrances. In respect to our guests and honoring a formal military ceremony, we ask that you stand and place your hands over your heart at the end when we give you a cue, and at the end of each performance, we ask that you remain silent. Please use that time to be reflective in your remembrance. Lieutenant Colonel, the podium is yours.
As you entered the gym this afternoon, you may have noticed a small table and a place of honor. It is set for one. This table is our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called POWs or MIAs. We call them brothers and sisters. They are unable to be with us this afternoon, and so we remember them. This table set for one is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his or her oppressors. Remember. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. Remember. The single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who keep the faith awaiting their return. Remember. The yellow ribbon tied so prominently on the vase is reminiscent of the yellow ribbon worn upon the lapel and breasts of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting of our missing. Remember. The candle is lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their unconquerable spirit. Remember. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of the bitter fate. Remember. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us this day. Remember. The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember. Remember. All of you who served with them and called them comrades, who depended upon their might and aid and relied upon them, for surely they have not forsaken you. Remember. Remember until the day they come home. Remember.
Would you please stand? remember. We are in the presence of greatness. Please remain standing. On behalf of Platte County High School, Platte County Arts School District, and as members of the community, we humbly recognize that we can never thank you enough for your service and leadership. You and your families will continue to inspire each of us every single day. You will inspire us to live with courage and commitment. Be always faithful, always ready. Live with integrity first, and most important, service before self. We will strive for excellence in everything that we do, and we can never thank you enough. Thank you so much. Please stand as we retire the colors. Students may be seated, please. Again, I want to thank you for being here today, students. I want to thank you for your reflection. We certainly want to honor those amongst us today. Honored guests and families, we want to again welcome you to join us at the North Cafe. You can exit out that door. We have a small reception in your honor. If you've got students here at Platte County High School, you're more than welcome to graduate as well. This is about you. Thank you again for your service. Thank you again for being members of our community. And if you ever want to come be part of Platte County High School, I personally will invite you. At this time, let me make sure what time it is. At this time, what we're going to do is we are going to ask you to be dismissed back to your last class that you were in. We will dismiss for the buses at that time. We have about 10 minutes remaining left in the day. So students, sophomores, and freshmen, you are dismissed. Seniors,